One Piece is one of the most divisive anime I've ever seen before. On one hand, you have people who absolutely adore it and treat it like their religion, and then on the other hand, you have people who hate it and would probably strangle the author themselves if they could. But regardless of how this anime has people more divided than my butt cheeks, what I'm talking about today is the most recent One Piece film called One Piece Film Red. And as someone who has spent a criminal amount of hours catching up on One Piece, I've watched 1,000 episodes of the anime and then read up to date to the current chapter of the manga, which is chapter 1077 as of me recording this. I absolutely love the series. It's probably, hands down, one of my favorite anime series out there. I love every aspect about it, and typically I don't watch anime movies because they don't really contribute to the canon storyline. They're just there to like make money, give you some filler information, bring in some characters who don't typically get the spotlight. But the reason I wanted to watch this One Piece film Red so desperately is because it was going to have red-haired Shanks in it, a character who has shown up enough times I could count on my hand in like the decades that this manga and anime have been running. And with such an elusive man being one of the poster characters for this movie, I had to watch it. I had to plop my booty cheeks down in a chair and watch this thing. And that's exactly what I did about 2 or 3 hours ago, and I've been letting it simmer for a bit, collecting my thoughts, all to record this video and just give my opinion on it. And I think it's phenomenal. I think it's on par with the anime and just everything that's going on in One Piece right now. Obviously, it's not canonical, but it does bring in characters and expand the lore on red-haired Shanks, Luffy, and even Uta, which is Red-Hair's daughter, who's like the main antagonist slash main character of this movie. And since I'm talking about Uta, Uta in Japanese means song, which is very prevalent, very relevant here. It's obvious why they named her that, because her devil fruit power is the Sing Sing fruit. And I gotta say, the songs in this movie are probably the best part. They are so amazingly good. I liked every single musical bit in this movie. Usually I absolutely despise when movies or shows do musical things, like little musical bits. But this one was actually enjoyable, and it was a big part of the storyline. The songs were just banger after banger, and they would absolutely slap your titties off. They go so hard. And now, obviously, I can't show you any of that because they would come for my head. They would send hitmen to assassinate me if I showed you a second of one of the songs. So I'm just going to cower in fear and be submissive to the copyright overlords. But I do got to say, if you just want to hear some good music, it's worth seeing the movie just for that. Now, for the other aspect of the movie that I watched it for, obviously, red-haired Shanks and the red-haired pirates. Because, like I said, in One Piece, they just don't show up. They're in like a handful of chapters, and we really don't know anything about them, except that Shanks is an emperor of the sea, and the red-haired pirates are one of the most powerful and prominent groups of pirates in the One Piece world. And aside from them hanging out with Luffy when he was a kid, that's pretty much all we know about them. And this movie does, I can happily say, it does give us a bit of red-haired Shanks fighting scenes, which are very awesome, very good. And it does it perfectly without making Shanks and Luffy have this reunion like it's been leading up to in the anime and the manga. I think if they would have met and actually like had their reunion in this movie, it would have been kind of dumb considering it's not the main storyline. It would have been kind of pointless and weird to do it then. And I'm glad they did it the way they did. I'm going to keep this as spoiler-free as possible. But I will say, you do get to see red-haired Shanks and how freakishly powerful the man is, even with one arm, and how he can use his haki to just knock out everybody who isn't like an admiral level or higher in strength, which is absolutely bananas to see. One of the coldest animes or one of the coldest moments in anime history for sure. This dude, red-haired Shanks, is just an absolute menace, and there's a reason that he's feared by all. But one other huge thing we get to see in this movie, spoiler alert, I guess, go ahead, plug your ears, go bah 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 for a couple seconds. We get to see Luffy's Gear 5 form that we've seen in the manga. It's not popped up in the anime yet. They're closing in on it shortly. Shortly, I mean like a while. But it's Luffy's form that has like the clouds, the white clouds all around him, and he turns into this like cartoon goofball character and make his eyes pop out of his head and everything. We get to see that form during the fight scene. It's also at the same time that Shanks is fighting, which you have to watch the movie to understand what I'm talking about. But it's very cool to see that. It's very neat. And the way they make Shanks and Luffy acknowledge each other, they kind of have a reunion, but in a way that it leaves it for the real reunion to happen in the anime and or in the manga. The way they handled it was pretty much perfect, is what I'm saying. The way they did that, they towed the line as best as they could. And them adding in Shanks's daughter, Uta, it wasn't like forceful. It didn't feel like they were trying to change the story too much by just throwing this character in, being like, oh yeah, Shanks also had a daughter that grew up with Luffy. It felt kind of natural, and they were both kind of like, they're both goofy characters. They both have their own beliefs that they heavily are chasing. Like Uta has her thing where she wants to make everyone in the world happy all the time. She wants to create this peace, which leads to her being the big bad of this movie that they have to end up fighting as like the final boss type of deal. But I don't want to talk about the plot points too heavily in this because the movie is relatively new and I don't want to like spoil everything for anyone who hasn't watched it. I just wanted to talk about it because this is one of the only times I have thoroughly enjoyed an anime movie. The last anime movie I think I watched was the Dragon Ball Broly movie, Dragon Ball Super Broly movie. And I thought it was okay or whatever. It looked really nice and the fight scenes were cool. But this one actually looked cool. Everything was great. The soundtrack's amazing. 10 out of 10. Probably the best part of this thing. Plus you get some more background and you actually get to see some action from one of the most badass characters in One Piece, that being Shanks. But they don't show you too much. They don't reveal all the cards. They don't like tell you Shanks' penis size and everything. They don't give you every detail about him. They pretty much just tease you even more by showing you like, oh, it's not just all talk. He's not like Buggy. He's not just all bark and no bite. He actually can back up all of the rumors. It's pretty much like they took the moment. Spoiler alert again, if you're still here after the first spoiler alert. This happened already in the anime, but it's kind of later on. It's right around the time when Luffy's brother Ace dies. I forget, what is that called? Marineford, I think that's the arc I'm thinking about. Yeah, it's Marineford that I'm thinking about. Whenever Shanks shows up and pretty much just flops his cock on the poop deck and stops the war right then and there, makes everyone back up. That's obviously interpreted differently by different people. I'm a Shanks meat writer though, so that's the way I interpret it. And that's pretty much what this movie does as well, except they actually give him a teensy-weensy little bit of fighting, which is just enough to make you feel like your time was well spent watching this movie if you were watching it solely to see Shanks. He does, of course, show up towards the end, even though he's used as like the poster boy for this movie. He doesn't show up till towards the end, but still, the whole movie is enjoyable. Once again, Uta, the daughter of Shanks, who's not really his biological daughter, but more of like an adopted daughter. She's the main character, as well as Luffy and the gang, but it mainly focuses on her and her storyline, her driving forces, everything she's trying to achieve. And overall, I thought the movie was very enjoyable, very much worth 2 hours of your time. But that's pretty much all I had to say. This movie followed through on every expectation I had, checked every box. If you're a fan of One Piece, definitely... Sorry, I'm burpy. This movie's definitely what you want to watch if you're a One Piece fan, if you haven't watched it already, of course. And it's probably gotta be my favorite anime movie ever. I'm talking in terms of, like, anime series that have movies. I'm not like throwing in Studio Ghibli movies in that mix because it wouldn't be fair. Studio Ghibli solos.